Good morning from Brussels. My name is Suman Kumar, and I am one of the 16 young leaders at the European Development Days. I am from Nepal, and back home in my country, I run a social enterprise that's working on rebuilding schools that were destroyed by the earthquake. And today we have Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed with us, and I have a few questions for her. And my first question is, we are operating in a challenging global context with issues such as conflict, migration, and broader geopolitical uncertainty all around. Against this backdrop, how do we continue to ensure the government and institutions keep their commitments to achieve the SDGs by 2030 and leave no one behind?
Thank you very much, Suman. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. Well, tough question, but we have a framework, and that's the SDGs. Taking it to the country level, moving from the negotiations and the talk to where it really needs to happen, identifying the constituencies that you need to be engaging with, from government to business to parliamentarians, civil society, and really picking up the issues that are the priorities that need to be addressed and moving with that, advocating for it, participating, holding government's feet to the fire. But for the UN, I think you also need to ask us, what is it that we're doing at the country level that we can open up those spaces, ensure that we're convening for results, and that we're using the framework of the SDGs to really push the ambition. There's a long road to get these 17 babies of ours, and they need to grow, and they will grow in country if we can get everyone on board supporting them.
Thank you, Amina. My second question is, we have already seen U-turns on the climate change agreement in the US, for example, and the Brexit votes speak to broaden national sentiment. What are some of your suggestions to stakeholders, such as cities, private sectors, civil society, who would like to take action for the SDGs?
Well, the momentum has already begun to grow from the day that we agreed these, the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. I think you've seen that even though we have some member countries who don't necessarily want to be on board right now, the rest of the country, from business to civil society to academia, is saying, but we don't want to be left behind. So in the case of climate change, and Goal 13 is the placeholder we had for the Paris Agreement, the train, sustainability train, as the Secretary General said, has left the station. And what we're doing is picking up more and more passengers. And in each milestone, we're able to establish some of the commitments and investments that we need to make so that we can reduce emissions, we can have climate action. But I think the important message here is to make sure that it's a country level that we do this at. It is governments at the country level. It is other key stakeholders at the country level that need to do that. The same applies for the 2030 agenda. That's the umbrella that we see for all those agreements that we have. And it is about how we partner, but how we also build on what has been unfinished business in the past. But engagement, 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 and really finding the solutions, a lot more young people involved, challenging your participation beyond advocacy, which is important, but what are the real concrete actions, and how are you going to be major players from today?
Thank you. My third question is, people are key to reaching the SDGs. How can regular people, especially young people like me, make an active contribution to Agenda 2030?
Well, you're already making an active contribution. You're asking leaders questions that maybe a few years ago you couldn't have. So that's a really big step. And what I've seen in spaces like this is that you're taking up that space. You're not allowing any free movement to be left behind. I think you need to push for more space. I think that in every opportunity that you have, engage with leaders. Don't leave an opportunity amiss, please. There are many leaders walking these corridors. You'd be surprised how many you make an impression on, and that they go home and that they enact that impression. But at home, I think it needs to be a concerted effort. Day in, day out, you need to take up a particular issue, really target who the main players are to make the difference, which part of government, is it the executive, is it the legislature? Be very particular about it. Understand what it is that you're representing. If you're in civil society and there's an issue, what is that issue? How do you connect with your parliamentarian? How do you connect with the sector? Who are the business partners that you could be with? What are the opportunities to leverage the finances and resources that will come your way? Now, you've got a little bit ahead of us because technology is big for young people. It's not something we do very well, but you certainly do. So you cross borders that we have as barriers in our minds. And I think that that's very important in this new world of regional integration, a universal agenda, leaving no one behind, clarify who the no ones are in your space and make sure you target them.
And my final question is, when it comes down to public and private partnership, because right now I'm running a social enterprise that's working on rebuilding schools, and my first school that I'm rebuilding is a public school, but we don't have any intervention from the government. So what would you suggest? How can I work to make a private and public partnership more sustainable so that all of us benefit in the long run?
I think it's amazing what you're doing. You're filling a gap that obviously has not been filled. And I wouldn't say that the government is totally to blame for that. Many developing countries have competing demands. They just don't have the resources to do what they would wish to do. But in the case that you're doing this, make the case for government first and foremost. If government's not available, make the case to the private sector that without a school, they will not get the skill set that they need for their businesses to get the outputs that should be qualitative and create better markets for themselves. So in every opportunity, there is another player, another partner that you can target. You just have to stretch, look around you, and go for it.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.